Willow was always the one who commanded attention, born into wealth and privilege. She carried herself with an air of perfection that made her seem untouchable to anyone around her. She was an embodiment of grace and tradition, the kind of girl every family dreamed of marrying into. But to me, she was more than just a beautiful face. She was my childhood sweetheart, the girl I had fallen for long before I even understood what love was. Our love story was a simple one. We met in kindergarten. When she used to wait by the window to see me after school, her eyes sparkling with excitement as I walked toward her. The innocence of that time stayed with us throughout our years in high school, where we would sneak glances at each other during classes, and eventually, when we both entered university, it blossomed into something deeper. People always assumed we were the perfect couple, destined to be together forever. But, as I would soon learn, appearances were often deceiving. When I was accepted into a prestigious university abroad, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to prove my worth, not just to myself, but to Willow's family. They were the kind of people who didn't settle for mediocrity. They expected the best. And so I worked tirelessly, dedicated myself to my studies with the hope that I could return one day, successful and ready to marry Willow. Before I left, Willow had promised me something. A simple promise, one that I thought would bind us together no matter how far apart we were. "When you come back," she said, her voice soft but resolute, "I'll say yes. I'll marry you." I clung to that promise during my time abroad. The research I was doing was not just for me, but for our future. Every paper I wrote, every theory I tested, was with the hope that when I returned, I would have something valuable to offer, not just to Willow, but to her family. The Liu Group, her family's business empire, was on the brink of collapse, and I knew my research could be the key to saving it. If I could just present my findings to her father, prove myself worthy in his eyes, then maybe, just maybe, he would approve of me as a future son-in-law. I worked day and night, pushing myself to the limits, knowing that I had to succeed. It was no longer just about Willow. It was about proving my worth, about securing a future that had once seemed so certain. But despite all my efforts, the return I had dreamed of was nothing like I had imagined. When I arrived back home, I was filled with anticipation. I thought of Willow constantly, dreaming of the moment I would see her again. Would she be waiting for me, as she always had in the past? Would we pick up where we had left off, as if no time had passed? I rushed through my first few days back, hardly pausing to catch my breath, eager to see her and ask for her hand in marriage. But then the bombshell dropped. Willow has a new boyfriend. My friends casually mentioned one evening at a gathering. I almost didn't hear the words. I thought I must have misheard. How could this be? We had been in love for over 8 years. We had made promises to each other. Promises that no one, not even time or distance, could break. Still, I tried to convince myself it was a mistake. Maybe she was just dating someone casually. Maybe it was just a phase. But when I saw Makoto, the man who had taken my place, standing there at the gathering, it felt like the ground had been ripped from under me. The first time I saw him was in a photo. It was taken just after I had left for abroad. Willow had sent it to me, saying, "I thought it was you." The back of the man in the photo looked so much like mine. I laughed it off, joking, "You miss me that much?" But Willow responded with a simple, "Yeah, I miss you." I thought nothing of it at the time. But now, as I saw him in person, standing next to her with a smug smile, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Willow was with him, not just as a friend, not just as someone she had moved on from. No, she was with him in a way I had always imagined us being together. His hand was on her back, her fingers tracing the curve of his arm. They looked like a couple, the kind of couple I had once dreamed of being with Willow. The realization hit me like a wave. The pain was sharp, cutting through me in ways I couldn't explain. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't the welcome home I had envisioned. I had spent so long working for her, and now I was standing there, watching her smile at another man like I didn't even exist. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me, the pity, the sympathy. They knew the story. They knew how long I had worked for Willow's family, how much I had sacrificed for her. But in that moment, none of that seemed to matter. The The world didn't care about my sacrifices. They didn't care about the love we had shared. All that mattered was that she had moved on. I had always thought that our love was something unshakable. But now I wasn't so sure. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to collect myself. The pain was unbearable, but I couldn't let anyone see it. Not here, not now. As I walked to the restroom, I felt the weight of the years of devotion crashing down on me. I had done everything right, and yet it wasn't enough. Willow had found someone else. She had moved on. The night had grown colder, a sharp breeze biting through the open windows of the banquet room. The dim lighting flickered above, casting long shadows across the room. I felt a coldness creep up my spine, but it wasn't from the weather. No, it was the presence of Makoto and Willow, standing just a few feet away, completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing inside of me. The room buzzed with polite chatter, but it felt distant, almost muffled. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, none of it reached me. I was trapped in my own thoughts, my own pain, as if everything else in the room had faded away. The only thing that mattered was Willow, and the man who was now standing beside her. Willow had always been the center of attention, the star of any room. But now, she wasn't just a woman I loved. She was someone else's. Someone who wasn't me. Someone who was so much more confident, so much more free. I looked at her, standing there with her new boyfriend, the man who had taken my place. As if on cue, the two of them walked into the room arm in arm. Willow's steps were graceful as always, but there was a subtle difference in the way she carried herself now. She wasn't the same girl who had been waiting for me all those years. No, this version of Willow was different. There was a certain coldness to her, a look in her eyes that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. She walked back from the restroom, looking flushed. Her lips were swollen, and she had just reapplied her lipstick in a hurry, as though she was trying to cover something up. Her eyes were slightly glassy, and I could tell she had been crying. My heart twisted painfully at the sight of her. The woman I had known, the woman I had loved, was no longer the same. Makoto, the man who had replaced me, smiled gently as he guided Willow to the table. He was calm, collected, and entirely comfortable in a way that made my chest tighten. He looked at me briefly, but there was no recognition in his eyes. To him, I was just a ghost from the past. And to Willow, I was becoming just that. "You're back," Makoto said, his voice smooth, almost mocking in its ease. "It's good to see you, George. How was your trip?" I wanted to respond, to say something cutting, something that would make him understand how deeply I was hurting. But I held my tongue. What would it matter? Words wouldn't change anything. Willow had made her choice, and there was nothing I could do to reverse it. The room was silent for a moment, as if everyone knew exactly what was happening but didn't know how to address it. People exchanged glances, and I could see the pity in their eyes. They had heard the rumors, of course. They knew about my relationship with Willow, how it had lasted for so many years, how we had made plans for the future. But now, they saw me standing there, a mere shadow of the man I had once been. Willow's friends, who had once supported me, now whispered among themselves. "Look at Makoto," one of them said, her voice dripping with admiration. "He's so thoughtful, always taking care of Willow when she needs him." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout at them, to tell them that they had no idea what had happened, that they had no clue what I had done for Willow, what I had sacrificed. But instead, I clenched my jaw and took another sip of my drink, letting the bitterness drown out my words. As Willow sat down, she barely looked at me. Her attention was entirely on Makoto, her eyes softening as she gazed at him. The way she smiled at him, it was the same way she used to smile at me. That warmth, that tenderness. It was all gone now. Makoto noticed me watching and, with a teasing smile, turned to Willow. "He really looks a lot like me, doesn't he?" he said, his voice light, almost too light. "I'm not his substitute, am I?" The word struck me like a blow. Substitute. Was that how she saw me? Just a replacement? A placeholder until someone better came along? My fists clenched, and I fought the urge to lash out. But I couldn't. I had already lost. Willow gave a small laugh. trying to brush off the comment. "Stop making things up, Makoto," she said, her voice soft, too soft. "He's nothing like you." Her words stung. They were meant to deflect, to push away the uncomfortable truth. But I could see the guilt in her eyes. She was trying to convince herself, just as much as she was trying to convince me. Makoto, ever the charmer, laughed again, but this time it was with a hint of superiority, as if he had already won. "You really do have a sharp tongue," he said to Willow, his eyes glinting with amusement. "But don't worry, I like it." The conversation drifted, but I couldn't focus on anything other than the distance between Willow and me. I could feel her slipping away, further and further, as if I had never truly mattered, as if all those years, all those memories, had meant nothing. Someone asked, "I heard you finished a 3-year course in just 2 years. You've been working so hard, but I also heard you were hospitalized recently. What happened?" I smiled, though it was forced, as I tried to downplay my physical and emotional exhaustion. "I just came back in a hurry," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "I didn't have time to eat properly. Some stomach issues, but nothing serious. I just need to rest." But I wasn't sure anyone was listening. Willow, for one, didn't seem to care. She was focused entirely on Makoto, who was peeling a crab for her, his hands gentle as he offered it to her. She took it with a small smile, oblivious to the turmoil inside me. It hit me then. This was real. She was with him. She had moved on. I had been a fool to think I could just waltz back into her life and pick up where we left off. That part of my life was over. I had been so sure that everything would fall into place when I returned. That Willow would be waiting for me, ready to fulfill the promise she had made. But now, I was nothing more than a ghost in her past. Someone she no longer needed. Just as I was about to get up and leave, Makoto spoke again, his voice cutting through the silence. "How did you two break up?" he asked, his tone casual, as though it was just another question. The room seemed to hold its breath. Everyone was waiting for my answer. Willow's face flushed slightly, and she looked away, but I could tell she was just as uncomfortable as I was. Her past with me was catching up to her, and she didn't know how to handle it. I turned to Makoto, my voice cold and steady. "People change. People move on," I said, my eyes locking onto his. "It's normal. She likes you now." Willow's eyes widened, and she seemed about to speak, but she didn't. Makoto, sensing the tension, didn't press further. Instead, he let the conversation shift to something else, but the damage had already been done. As the evening wore on, I couldn't escape the feeling that everything was slipping through my fingers. Willow had moved on, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I was no longer the man she loved. I was a memory, and memories, as I was learning, didn't hold much weight. I stood up and excused myself, needing a moment alone. The weight of the room, the weight of Willow's indifference, was suffocating. I needed air. I needed to get away from them all, from everything. The restroom was empty when I arrived, but it didn't offer me the solace I had hoped for. The pain, the anger, the heartbreak, it all hit me with full force. I leaned against the sink, closing my eyes, but there was no escape. I stepped out of the restroom and took a deep breath, the cold air of the hallway doing little to calm the storm inside me. The banquet room felt like a distant memory, a place I no longer belonged. I had thought, foolishly, that things would be different when I came back. But now, seeing Willow with Makoto, everything I had worked for, everything I had hoped for had shattered. As I walked back toward the banquet room, my mind raced. I thought about the promises we had made to each other, the years we had spent together, and yet here I was, a stranger in her life. What had happened? How had I gone from a man she loved to the man she could barely look at? I pushed open the door and walked in, my gaze immediately finding Willow and Makoto. They were seated together, laughing at something Makoto had said. Willow's head tilted back, her laughter light and carefree, something I had once loved hearing. But now, it felt like a distant echo of the woman I had known. I made my way to the table, trying to hold my composure. The others, sensing the tension in the air, fell silent, watching as I approached. Willow glanced up briefly, her eyes meeting mine for a split second before she quickly looked away, as if she couldn't bear to face me. The sudden shift in her behavior sent a sharp pang through my chest. "George, are you feeling all right?" one of her friends asked, trying to break the awkward silence. I could hear the hint of concern in her voice, but it felt out of place. How could they be concerned about me when they didn't even understand what I was going through? "I'm fine," I replied coldly, my words clipped, though my insides were anything but fine. My heart was a mess of rage, hurt, and confusion. I sat down, but it felt like my presence was a burden to everyone else. Makoto's eyes locked onto mine, a smug smile playing on his lips. He wasn't trying to hide it. He was enjoying this, relishing the power he held over me. He had taken everything from me. My future, my dreams, my place in Willow's life. And now he was taunting me, savoring every moment of it. "So, George," Makoto began, his voice dripping with mock politeness, "how's life overseas? I've heard you've been doing great things. Your research, your work, sound impressive." I gritted my teeth, the bitterness rising within me. The man had the nerve to speak to me like nothing had changed, like everything was fine. I wanted to snap, to say something cutting, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Willow had already made her choice, and no amount of words could take her back. I swallowed my anger and forced a smile. "It's been good," I replied, my voice strained. "Busy, but I'm glad to be back." Makoto seemed to relish the tension, his smile widening as he turned to Willow. "It's so good to see everything coming together, right?" he said, his tone light, but there was something darker behind it. "You got a real catch here, Willow." The words hung in the air, and I couldn't stop myself from flinching. A real catch. It was a slap in the face, a reminder that I wasn't the one standing beside her now. I was the one left behind, the one who had been replaced. Willow didn't say anything, her gaze fixed on her plate, her lips pressed together. She didn't look up at me once. I could feel the distance between us growing, a chasm so wide that no words could bridge it. Makoto's next words were more direct, almost too casual. "So, how did you and Willow end things? I'm curious. I mean, you two were always so close, right?" The room fell silent again, all eyes on me. Willow shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushing slightly. She was trying to pretend that nothing had happened, trying to act like I didn't exist in this moment. But I couldn't pretend. Not anymore. I forced myself to look Makoto in the eye, my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. "People change," I said, my words clipped. "People move on. It's normal. Willow likes you now. That's all that matters." Willow's head snapped up at my words, her eyes flashing with something I couldn't quite read. Anger? Regret? Whatever it was, it stung. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but nothing came out. She simply looked at me, as if trying to understand what I had just said. Makoto, sensing an opening, chuckled softly. "I see," he said, his voice almost sympathetic. "It's tough when things change, isn't it? But I guess you have to accept it." I looked at him, the man who had taken everything from me, and I couldn't stop myself. "You're right," I said bitterly. "I have to accept it. But you should know, Makoto, that it's not as simple as you think. Willow didn't just move on. She replaced me. She didn't wait. She ran straight into your arms." The words felt like daggers, and I knew I had hit a nerve. Willow's face paled, and she clenched her fist in her lap. For a moment, she looked like she might say something, but she remained silent. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The people who had been watching curiously now exchanged uneasy glances. The tension between us was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. No one knew how to respond, how to navigate this painful moment. Makoto's expression darkened, and he leaned forward slightly. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said quietly, his tone colder now. "You think you're the only one who's been hurt? You think I don't know what it's like to feel betrayed?" I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. He was right. He had been hurt, too. But that didn't change the fact that he had taken everything from me, that he was standing there with Willow, acting like he had earned her love, like I hadn't given everything I had for her. Before I could respond, Willow stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She looked at me, her expression cold, and I could see the warning in her eyes. "George," she said, her voice sharp, "don't do this." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I had been trying so hard to hold it together, to not let the hurt show. But now, everything I had bottled up came rushing to the surface. "I'm done, Willow," I said, my voice shaking with anger and frustration. "I'm done with all of this. I'm done pretending that this doesn't hurt, that I'm okay with what you've done. I'm done being your second choice." I turned away from her, from all of them, and walked out of the room. The world outside felt cold and unfamiliar, but it was better than facing them. It was better than staying in a place where I no longer belonged. The days following the incident at the banquet felt like a blur. The anger that had built up inside me had nowhere to go, swirling relentlessly in my chest. I tried to focus on my work, on the things that mattered, but every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Willow and Makoto, hand in hand, laughing, living a life I thought would be mine. The tension had settled, but it was only a matter of time before it would come to a head again. And, of course, the moment arrived sooner than I expected. The academic conference was fast approaching, and my research was scheduled to be the main topic of discussion. It was a prestigious event, one that could reshape the future of the industry. It should have been a moment of triumph for me, a chance to prove myself. But instead, I felt a sense of dread building inside me. I knew Willow would be there, and I knew Makoto would be with her. The thought of them together, standing side by side, made my stomach turn. I arrived early at the conference hall, hoping to prepare myself mentally for the storm that was sure to come. The hum of quiet conversations and the soft shuffle of shoes against the marble floor did little to calm my nerves. Every face in the crowd seemed unfamiliar, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, waiting for something to happen. And then, as I had anticipated, I saw them. Willow entered the room with Makoto by her side, his hand resting possessively on her shoulder. The sight of them together was like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, and I had to force myself to look away, to regain control. This was not the time to lose my composure. Makoto caught sight of me and immediately made his way over, his smile wide and irritatingly smug. I could see the arrogance in his posture, the way he stood just a little too tall, as if to say, "Look at me, I've won." "George," he said with a sly grin, "it's good to see you again. You're looking well. How's life been treating you?" His tone was mocking, and I could hear the unspoken challenge in his words. He was trying to bait me, to push me into a confrontation. I forced a smile, though it felt like it was split in my face. "It's been fine," I replied, my voice measured. "Busy. You know how it is." Makoto chuckled, clearly enjoying the discomfort he was causing. "I imagine it must be hard coming back after everything that happened," he said, glancing at Willow, who was standing just behind him. She had a polite smile on her face, but her eyes avoided mine, as if afraid to meet my gaze. I swallowed my bitterness, determined not to show any weakness. "People move on," I said flatly, my words cold. "It's normal." Willow's expression faltered for a brief moment, and I saw the tiniest flicker of something in her eyes. Regret? Guilt? I couldn't be sure. But she quickly masked it, turning her attention to the podium where the conference would begin. Makoto, however, wasn't done yet. "You know," he said, his voice almost too casual, "I've been thinking about how similar you and I are. We both care about Willow, right? But I've been the one to stay by her side, especially when she needed someone the most. You were busy overseas, doing your research, and, well, she didn't have anyone else to lean on." His words hit me like a slap, and I felt my blood boil. He was twisting the truth, making it seem as though I had abandoned Willow, as if I had chosen my work over her. He had no idea the sacrifices I had made, the long nights I spent working on research to help the Liu family, all for her. Yet here he was, painting himself as a hero, the one who had been there when I wasn't. I could feel my hands tightening into fists, my nails digging into my palms. But I held it together, just barely. "I didn't abandon her," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "I did what I thought was best for both of us. But it looks like she's made her choice." Makoto's smile widened, as if he had won the game. Well, sometimes choices are made for us, he said smoothly. But that's life, right? You can't dwell on the past. Before I could respond, the conference began. The opening speeches and introductions felt like background noise, a blur of words that didn't matter. My mind was too focused on Willow and Makoto, on their silent communication, the way their fingers brush against each other, the way they seemed to be in their own little world. As the conference progressed, I found myself growing more restless. I could feel the eyes of the attendees on me, some of them clearly aware of the tension between me and the Liu family. The whispers, the subtle glances, everything about the situation felt wrong. It wasn't until the break between sessions that I had the chance to confront Willow. I had been avoiding her, unwilling to face her after everything that had happened, but now I had no choice. I spotted her standing near the refreshment table, her back to me as she spoke to one of the other attendees. Makoto wasn't with her. It was the perfect opportunity to say what I needed to say, to finally get some answers. I walked up behind her, the sound of my footsteps on the polished floor somehow louder than I expected. She turned when she heard me approach, her face stiffening as she saw me. "George," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a note of surprise in her tone, as if she hadn't expected me to speak to her at. "Oh, what are you doing here?" I fought to keep my voice even, but the anger that had been simmering inside me for months was impossible to ignore now. "I'm here because of the work I've done. I'm here because I gave everything to help your family, to help Liu Group. And now this—" Willow's eyes flickered with something, guilt, regret, or maybe shame, but she quickly looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "I didn't mean for things to happen this way, George," she said quietly. I thought I was doing the right thing." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound harsh in the quiet space between us. "The right thing," I repeated. "You didn't think, Willow. You didn't wait. You didn't even care. And now you're here, acting like everything is fine. But it's not fine." Her face twisted with emotion. "I don't want this, George. You have to understand. I don't understand anything, Willow." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "I don't understand how you could let it all slip away so easily. How you could just move on with someone else. Like our time together meant nothing." I could see her eyes welling up, but I wasn't about to let myself soften. Not now. Not after everything she had put me through. She had made her choice, and I had to accept that. But the pain of betrayal still cut through me, sharp and unrelenting. "I'm not here for closure, Willow," I said, my voice firm. "I'm here because I want you to understand something. What you did to me, it wasn't just about breaking my heart. It was about destroying everything we built together. And I won't forget that." Before she could respond, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, alone in the crowd. As I left the conference hall, I could hear her calling after me. But I didn't turn back. I was done. The days after the conference were a haze of meetings, paperwork, and a constant, gnawing ache in my chest. Despite my efforts to move forward, I couldn't escape the thought of Willow and Makoto, how effortlessly they fit together, how easily they had replaced me. It was as if my entire existence had been reduced to a series of forgotten promises and broken dreams. The storm inside me hadn't subsided. It was building, growing stronger with each passing day. But I couldn't focus on that now. I had a meeting with Alicia, a deal that would bring me closer to my goal of taking down Liu Group. It should have been something to look forward to, but instead I felt empty. The excitement I once had for success was gone, buried beneath the weight of betrayal and loss. I arrived at the restaurant, a quiet, upscale place where the world outside seemed to disappear. The kind of place where business deals were made, where everything appeared perfect on the surface. But as soon as I stepped inside, I spotted her. Willow. She was sitting at a table by the window, a soft light illuminating her face, making her look more fragile than I remembered. Her eyes, once full of life and laughter, now seemed distant, as if she was lost in her own world. I froze for a moment, the sight of her bringing back memories, of our time together, of everything we had shared. It felt like a lifetime ago, yet the pain was still fresh, still raw. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I wasn't here for nostalgia. I wasn't here to rekindle anything. Willow's gaze flicked up when she saw me, her expression changing immediately. She looked at me with that familiar mix of guilt and uncertainty, as if she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I turned away from her and walked toward the table where Alicia was waiting. She greeted me with a warm smile, but I could see the concern in her eyes. She had always been perceptive, always able to read me even when I tried to hide my feelings. "Everything all right, George?" Alicia asked, her tone soft but probing. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just some old business to settle." Alicia didn't press further. She knew better than to pry when I wasn't ready to talk. Instead, she shifted the conversation to the matter at hand, our business dealings. But even as we discussed figures and projections, my mind kept drifting back to Willow. I could feel her presence across the room, a weight on my shoulders, pulling at me. Every now and then, I'd catch her gaze, and each time I saw the same expression, regret mixed with something else, something I couldn't quite place. It made my heart ache, but it also fueled the fire inside me. I wasn't going to let her back in. Not this time. But then, just as I was about to finish the conversation with Alicia, I heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. I turned, and there she was, Willow, standing at the edge of our table, her hands nervously twisting in front of her. "George," she said, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" I stiffened, my body reacting before my mind could process the words. The last thing I wanted was to engage with her, to listen to her excuses or apologies. But there was something in her voice, something that made me pause. "Not here, Willow," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "Not now." But she didn't back down. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Please, just for a minute. I need to explain. I owe you that much." I glanced at Alicia, who had gone silent, watching us with an unreadable expression. She knew this was a conversation I had to have, whether I liked it or not. "Fine," I muttered, standing up and motioning for her to follow me. I led her outside, into the quiet of the city street. The night air was cool against my skin, and I could hear the hum of traffic in the distance. It felt like a world away from the chaos inside. Willow stood there for a moment, collecting her thoughts, before she finally spoke. "George, I know I've hurt you. I know I've made mistakes. But I never wanted to destroy everything we had. I never meant for it to end this way." I shook my head, the anger I had been holding back threatening to spill over. "You didn't just make mistakes, Willow. You made choices. You chose him. You left me behind without even a second thought. And now you expect me to just forgive you?" Her face twisted with emotion, her voice trembling as she continued. "It wasn't like that. I was scared, George. The Lou group was falling apart. My father was on the verge of losing everything. I didn't know what to do, and Makoto was there. He helped me through it. He was there when you weren't." I took a step back, the words hitting me harder than I expected. "So that's it? That's your excuse? You ran into his arms because you were scared? What about me? What about everything we had? Did that mean nothing to you?" She reached out, her fingers brushing my arm, but I pulled away. "Please, don't touch me," I said, my voice tight. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to break me and then expect everything to be fine just because you're sorry." I could see the tears in her eyes now, the hurt she was feeling. But it didn't matter. The pain I had gone through, the loneliness, the betrayal, was still too fresh, too raw for me to forgive her. "Not now. Not yet. I'm not asking you to forgive me, George," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise of the city. "I'm asking for a chance. Just one more chance to make things right. I don't know what's going on with Makoto, but I know I'm not happy. I haven't been for a long time." I looked at her, trying to find any trace of the girl I once knew, the girl I had loved. But all I saw was a stranger, someone who had taken everything from me and left me broken. "Willow," I said, my voice steady but filled with finality, "you don't get to come back into my life. Not after everything. You don't get to just walk back in when it's convenient for you." I turned away from her, my heart heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The rain poured down relentlessly as I walked out of the police station. the bitter weight of the entire day pressing on my shoulders. The flashing lights of the police cars seemed to blur into the gray mist that surrounded me. Everything felt surreal, like a scene from a movie I had no desire to be a part of. I had just been through a storm of accusations, humiliation, and revelations. Willow, the girl I had once loved, had caused a scandal that threatened to tear apart everything I had worked for. But now, as I stood in the cold, I realized something. My heart had grown numb to the pain. There was nothing left for me to fight for. Makoto, the man who had dared to steal what was mine, was still in the picture. The betrayal I had once experienced felt like a faint memory compared to the fresh wound of seeing my life crumble in front of me. As I stared into the rain, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything I had sacrificed. My research, my time abroad, my very identity. It all seemed so trivial in the face of the reality I now had to confront. It wasn't just about Willow anymore. It was about the life I had given up, the promises I had made to myself. I had chosen to invest in the Lou Group, in Willow, to prove myself worthy of her. Yet, it was all for nothing. She had made her choice, and I had been nothing more than a pawn in her game. The phone in my pocket buzzed, snapping me back to reality. It was Alicia. I didn't need to check the message to know what it said. She had been there, watching the entire spectacle unfold. But I didn't feel like talking to her. Not right now. I needed space, and I needed to think. I stepped into the car, the warmth of the interior contrasting sharply with the cold, wet air outside. The driver didn't speak, and I didn't offer a word either. My mind was consumed by thoughts of Willow, of Makoto, and of everything that had been lost. But it was a hollow feeling. I had nothing left to give. The memories of my time with Willow played in my mind, but they felt distant, like a dream I had once lived but could no longer touch. I had given everything for her, for us. I had thrown away my future for the Lou Group, and what did I get in return? A broken heart, a shattered ego, and a bitter taste of betrayal. And yet, here I was, still caught in the web of my own choices. The car rolled to a stop in front of a familiar building. My office. The lights inside were still on, despite the late hour. I sighed, pushing open the door and stepping into the lobby. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above was the only sound that filled the otherwise empty space. Alicia was waiting for me inside, her expression unreadable as she watched me approach. She had been with me through all of this, witnessing the rise and fall of my hopes, the slow destruction of everything I had built. "You're looking worse than usual," she said, her tone light but with a hint of concern. "What happened?" I gave her a half smile, though there was no humor in it. "Everything's falling apart, Alicia. Willow, Makoto, Lou Group. It's all a mess. I'm the fool who got caught in the middle of it." She shook her head, stepping closer to me. "You're not a fool, George. You did what you thought was right. Sometimes people make mistakes. But that doesn't mean everything you've worked for is worthless." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I'm not sure anymore. All of it feels pointless. I've been so focused on Willow and Lou Group that I forgot about myself. I thought I could fix everything. But now I'm just standing in the ruins of my own making. Alicia placed a hand on my shoulder, her grip firm. "It's not too late, George. You still have the power to turn things around. You've got your research, your work. Don't let this define you. Use it to rebuild." I looked at her, the desperation in her eyes reminding me that she wasn't giving up on me, even if I had given up on myself. "I don't know how to move on from this. I've lost everything I cared about." She gave me a knowing look, her voice softer now. "Not everything. You still have your integrity, your passion. You're still the person who made a difference with his research. Don't let them take that from you." I nodded slowly, the words sinking in. But even as I listened, I couldn't shake the image of Willow. Her face pale, her eyes filled with regret and confusion. I couldn't stop thinking about the choices she had made, the lies she had told. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. "I'll make them regret it," I said, my voice low but filled with a new sense of determination. "I'll make them all regret it. Willow, Makoto, Lou Group, they'll all pay for what they did to me." Alicia's expression softened, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Be careful, George. You don't want to become someone you can't recognize in the process. Revenge has a way of consuming you. I smirked, but the bitterness was evident in my voice. I've already been consumed. There's nothing left to lose. She didn't argue further, knowing that I had already made up my mind. But she didn't walk away either. She stayed by my side, silently offering her support. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't let Willow's betrayal be the end of me. I would take back everything I had lost, no matter the cost. I stood up, feeling a new sense of purpose burning inside me. Let's get to work, Alicia. We've got a lot to do. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the same fire that had ignited in me. All right, George, let's do this. As we walked toward the door, I couldn't help but feel that the storm inside me had shifted. It wasn't just about Willow anymore. It was about me, about reclaiming my power, my identity, and my future. I had been broken, but I wasn't done yet. I would rise again, and this time, nothing would stand in my way. The rain outside the car windows blurred the world, a constant downpour that seemed to echo the chaos inside my mind. The storm outside had finally caught up with me, and now, as I sat in the back of the car, staring out into the night, I felt the weight of everything pressing on me. Willow's final plea, her desperate attempt to hold on to me, still echoed in my ears. But there was no turning back now. The damage had been done. Alicia sat across from me, watching me quietly, her expression unreadable. She had seen the worst of me over the past few weeks. My rage, my despair, my bitterness. She had been the one constant in a world that seemed to be falling apart. But even her calm presence wasn't enough to quiet the storm inside me. George, Alicia spoke gently, her voice cutting through the silence. Are you sure about this? About what you're doing with Willow and Makoto? I exhaled sharply, my gaze still fixed on the rain. I don't have a choice, Alicia. They've pushed me to the edge, and now I'm going to take back what's mine. You're not thinking clearly, she replied, her voice firm yet filled with concern. Revenge isn't the answer, George. I know you're angry, but it won't bring you peace. It'll only consume you, and when it's over, you'll be left with nothing. I finally turned to her, my eyes narrowing. You don't understand. You didn't see what they did to me. How they tore apart everything I worked for. How Willow, the woman I thought I knew, just threw me away like I was nothing. Alicia's face softened, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. I know. I can see how much it's hurting you. But this path you're on, it's a dangerous one. You're letting them control you. The anger, the bitterness, it's eating you from the inside. You're not that person, George. You never were. I gritted my teeth, shaking my head. Maybe I've always been that person. Maybe all this time, I was just waiting for a reason to snap. Alicia leaned forward, her voice low but insistent. Don't do this. Don't let the situation define you. You're better than this. You're better than revenge. If you keep going down this road, you'll lose yourself completely. You'll become someone you won't recognize. I looked away, feeling the weight of her words. But I couldn't stop myself. I had already made my decision. Willow had crossed a line, and so had Makoto. They thought they could just take everything from me, without consequences. But they were wrong. They would see that. I've already lost everything that mattered to me. I said, my voice tinged with bitterness. What's left for me now? What's left to lose? Alicia sighed, her expression pained. You still have a future. You still have your work, your career. You have people who care about you. People who are here for you, no matter what. Don't let this ruin you. I clenched my fists, staring at the dark road ahead. I don't need anyone's pity. I'll take care of this myself. There was a long silence between us. The car slowly driving through the rain-soaked streets. We reached my apartment, the familiar building looming in front of us, but I didn't feel any sense of comfort. All I felt was the weight of the decisions I had made. I stepped out of the car, Alicia following behind me. As we entered the lobby of the building, I felt the same emptiness inside. The walls that once felt like home now felt cold and distant. I had worked so hard to get to this point, to prove myself, to secure a future with Willow by my side. But now, all of it seemed meaningless. Alicia stopped me just before I reached the elevator. "George, I'm not going to stop you," she said quietly. "But I hope you realize what you're doing. This anger, this hatred, it won't give you what you're looking for. It'll just keep you trapped in the past. And one day, you'll look back and wonder why you let it consume you." I stared at her, the words sinking in, but they felt like distant echoes. She was right. I knew that. But at that moment, all I could feel was the urge to take control, to get back at Willow and Makoto, to show them I wasn't someone they could walk all over. "I'll figure out Alicia," I said, my voice low but resolute. "Thank you for everything. But this is something I have to do on my own." She gave me one last look before nodding and walking away, her footsteps fading into the distance. I stood there, alone, feeling the weight of her words and the loneliness that had settled in my chest. The next few days passed in a blur. I had reached out to various people, pulling strings, setting things into motion. Everything was falling into place. But with each passing moment, the guilt began to creep in. There were moments when I questioned whether this path was really the right one. I had always prided myself on being rational, on being driven by logic and reason. But now, I was consumed by something far more dangerous: revenge. I found myself standing in front of Willow's apartment building, the rain still falling around me. I had no idea what I was doing here. It wasn't like I expected her to welcome me back with open arms. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had unfinished business. I needed to see her again, to confront her, to finally put an end to the chapter of my life that had been torn apart by lies and betrayal. As I approached the door, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Makoto. "Stay away from Willow. This is your last warning. Don't think I won't do something about it." I smirked at the message. Makoto's confidence was laughable. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I wasn't afraid of him. Not anymore. I turned on my heel, walking away from the building, my mind already plotting my next move. But deep down, I knew I was only delaying the inevitable. I had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. No matter what happened, I was committed to seeing this through.